Everyone claims to be the true church. Everyone insists their interpretation, their tradition, their doctrinal system is the one that finally got it right. And the result, denomination after denomination, division after division, each convinced they're closer to God because they explain to Him more precisely. But the real problem isn't doctrine, it's the need to keep going. The need to keep refining, systemizing, adding commentary to commentary until mystery itself becomes unacceptable. We see it in the Talmud. We see it in Christian theology. The assumption is always the same. Knowledge equals deeper spirituality. But that's just a baptized form of Gnosticism. What happens when knowledge becomes the marker of spiritual maturity, when misunderstanding is mistaken for elevation, you end up with people who think their grasp of divine mechanics puts them closer to God than a person who simply trusts Him. And slowly, subtly, faith becomes a competition. Entire traditions are built not on surrender to God, but on pride that we've diagrammed Him more thoroughly than the group next door. You can see it in the way we treat mystery, like a problem to solve rather than a place to kneel. We don't know where human responsibility ends and divine initiative begins. But rather than admit that, we declare a system. We build theologies to cover our discomfort. We lay human logic over divine tension like a tarp. We try to make the infinite searchable. But here's the thing, mystery isn't where heresy flows, it's where worship begins. The apostles knew this. They didn't split hairs over the mechanics of election or map out every possible metaphysical implication of grace. They simply preached Christ crucified. They didn't try to explain God beyond what had been revealed. They bore witness to what they saw. And what they saw was a God who initiates and a God who invites. That is the heart of the biblical tension. God chooses, that's undeniable, and yet He calls out to all. That too is undeniable. The Bible doesn't resolve this paradox, it holds it in sacred tension, but we, uncomfortable with loose ends, run to resolve what God left open. And in doing so, we hijack the gospel with our own systems. We reduce salvation to formulas. We reduce faithfulness to footnotes. We reduce the mystery of God to a set of manageable talking points. We act as if our ability to categorize divine things somehow proves we spiritually arrived. But it doesn't. That's not knowledge, that's arrogance dressed in theology. And this is why the church remains fractured. Not because we don't love Scripture, but because we've made systems building the new priesthood. We're not content to be stewards of mystery. We want to be masters of it. But we're not called to master mystery, we're called to submit to it, to sit under it, to let it change us rather than try to explain it away. And when we fail to do that, we create a culture where spiritual superiority is linked to how many theological knots you think you've untangled. Where church is formed not around Christ's love, but around interpretive pride. Where the measure of maturity isn't how well you love, it's how tightly you can argue. But Jesus doesn't say they will know you are mine by your doctrinal system. He says they will know you are mine by your love. Love is the only test that transcends interpretation. Love is what brings the invisible God into view. Love is the highest form of theology. Because when love becomes a standard, there is no room to boast. There's no hierarchy of intellect. There's only the humble recognition that God came near and we're all called to respond. In Israel, covenant membership was identity. You were God's because He made you His. You didn't ascend to that status by explaining Torah better than your neighbor. The covenant defined you. And that clarity prevented the chaos we see today, where everyone tries to prove they're gods by being the most right. Jesus recentered it all. The greatest commandment are these: love God, love your neighbor. That's it. He took the immeasurable and made it visible. He took the invisible badge of spiritual status and tied it to something verifiable: how you treat others. That is what makes the church, not the volume of commentary, not the size of your systematic theology, but the presence of love, the fruit of grace, the witness of a people who aren't trying to win arguments, but live in awe. We don't need another denomination. We need a return to Christ, a return to humility, a return to reverent mystery. Because until we see that not knowing everything isn't spiritual failure, it's spiritual posture, we will keep dividing over things that were never ours to master. Mystery isn't a problem, and it's a gift, and it's time we started treating it that way.